right, so we have a fairly big van update. Um, if you haven't heard by some chance, I was having a little issue with the van. A few weeks ago, I took her for her first maiden trip down to Newport Beach. I was almost all the way there when the cluster, which is the speedometer, odometer, suddenly just went wonky and died. Check engine light came on, and when I would turn off the freeway, the engine died. I got her back into Portland the following day, took her down to Goodyear, and they worked on it, and they got some things fixed, and the cluster was working, and everything was good again. I went and picked it up, and in all sincerity, in less than a mile, like far less than a mile, the cluster died again. And they were like, well, it has to be the cluster. And so we started sourcing out a cluster, and I was still having the issue of anytime I got above 45 miles an hour, the check engine light would come on, and then the engine would stall. So I've been stressing on this in the background of everything else, that I had an engine problem, like a real serious engine problem. That was my worry, that there was something that was just going to cost a lot of money, the engine was going to die. I mean, any of the bad isms that you could imagine were going through my mind every time this happened. Also made it really uncomfortable to drive the van, just because I was ready for it to have something go wrong at any time, which is not a fun thing. So we tried a couple other things because I got a hold of a specialist who works on clusters and the gauges. And he said, well, with that's not just the cluster. He said, you gotta try something else. He's like, I would do your ignition switch if I were you. So I think last week we did the ignition switch. And it helped a little. I mean, if nothing else, the door buzzer that hadn't been going off before started going off. And, it ran a little smoother in the sense of starting up and all of that. And for a hot second, I will say the check engine light did not come on. I got up to 45 and I was like, no check engine. Got up to 50, no check engine. Got up to 52, check engine. Actually, I think I got up to 54 that time before the check engine light came on. So, back to the drawing board again. So this week, I took it in on Wednesday, and it took them a couple of days to be able to get to it, because this this situation that I was experiencing would not happen unless you had driven the van for like 20 to 30 minutes, gotten it up to at least 45 miles an hour for a bit, and then try to go slower than that coming to a stoplight or making a right turn. Then it would actually stall. So understandably, it's not easy for a mechanics bay to be like, oh, hey, you're going to go just drive for a half hour. Don't worry about all these other vehicles we have. You're just going to go drive for half an hour and try and figure this out, which is really what it came down to. And so they finally got the check engine light to come on. I don't know if it ever stalled for them or not, because the stalls were minimal. They didn't happen every time. They were random. But it got them some information. It got them a reading. They researched it, and what it was is, I believe it's a transistor. Yeah, transistor that they had replaced. And I do not hold Goodyear at fault for this at all. Know that. This is a 1995 Dodge Explorer van. When is the last time you think these guys actually probably worked on something like this? It's been a hot minute. And I don't even know if I would have even caught the fact that there are two styles of transistors for the same van. One just happens to be a little longer than the other. Well, they decided to give that a try. The cluster works again. The check engine light doesn't come on, and it doesn't seem to stall. And it's working a little better, too, because they gave it a little tune-up while they were in there, because I did an engine diagnostic. So, yeah, she's back. She's working really good. She feels really good. Tomorrow, for the first time since the trip to Newport, I will be getting in the van. I'm gonna go solo. I'm not gonna take the cats tomorrow because it's just gonna be a day trip of me with the van, really making sure she can go 55, 60, 65, 80, 70. Um, Believe me, the main mechanic, Eric, who's been working on this, one of the first times I brought it in, he's like, so you get that thing up to 95 yet? So he understands what this engine can do. I don't want to overtax it, but it's a young engine for how old it is. Again, it's only got 70,000 miles on it. And I think, in all sincerity, and I've mentioned this a bit before here and there, what I honestly believe happened with this van is that the family that owned it, were realizing that it was at a point of where if they were going to continue to use it, a lot of things had to be freshened and updated. And I'm not talking the cluster or anything like that, although I have a feeling this transistor would have gone out on them at some point too. But, we needed to do the brakes, a lot of hoses, seals, oil change. There are a few other things that they did. I mean, I'm not going to kid, it's been about another almost 5,000 all told on the backside of purchasing the van to get the van to this point. But she's there. She's back home. She felt good. If it wasn't Friday night, I would go drive somewhere right now. But the world is coming back to traffic. I potentially have my buddy Sonia coming over. We'll see if she actually makes it. Never know with her. Just because she got that shit going on. But, yeah. She's fixed. A couple other things to go over. I don't know if I've gone over everything. And I will do a tour tomorrow with the van. Especially when I find a nice little spot to pull over and get her tricked out with the canopy out and showing exactly how she's going to look when I am truly set up out in the middle of nowhere enjoying my day. We got the cooler. I have storage bins. I am starting to move like cutting boards and other little surface things that I want in the van to just have as a hard surface here and there. Like if I want to set something on the bed, cutting board down, on top of that, type of thing. Got the percolator, which kicked my ass last night. I don't think I myself have ever actually used a percolator. I remember my dad's parents having one, and I think my Nana had one. And the only time I would ever even see it in use was like Thanksgiving or Christmas, for when we'd all do holiday gatherings and have coffee after the big meal. And that was for the adults, So I have for the last few years actually used a French press. And when I say last few years, like last 10, 15 years, I've primarily used a French press. Over the last year and a half, I have broken 3 French presses. I don't know if it's that I'm getting old and in the morning I'm just not as aware of what I'm doing before I have my coffee, or if things are just not of as good a quality as they used to be, because I feel a lot of times what would happen is the handle itself would kind of give and that would spazzy. I'd like feel it shift and basically kind of fall out of my hand. But yeah, I think definitely at least one time was my fault, but 2 of those times I do not think were my fault. And because the French press is made of a glass cylinder, as soon as it hit the ground, glass, wet coffee grounds, and water. Yay! So as much as I do love a French press, that's not what I wanted to take with me on the road. Partly because a French press can be messy. I mean, it really can be messy. just because you can get grounds here and there, or on occasion when you press down, even if you think you're going nice and gently down, suddenly and it spews out a whole bunch of stuff from the spigot itself, and now you've got coffee all over your counter, and that's a bigger deal in the van than it is even in a house. So I was actually looking at camp percolators, like the old camp stove, the blue one with the kind of white looking enamel covering type of thing, but decided not to go with that. And I'll show you the percolator tomorrow because it's going to be in the van, because one of the things I would like to do is actually break open the stove tomorrow and finally officially use it for the first time. But yeah, so I got the percolator. I got a silver one with a nice big black handle on it, and it's really solidly built, and it makes amazing coffee. I will say I read a little thing online before I made it. I'm glad I did, because I never used a percolator. My thought was, oh, well, kind of turn the water up high and let it go. Yes and no. You want to set it at like a medium high to begin with until you actually get the water bubbling, and then you want to turn it down and let it percolate at a lower level heat for about 10 minutes. That right there tells you why the automatic coffee drip things have replaced it, let alone Keurig's replacing the old coffee drip maker, because you do not have to pay as much attention to a coffee maker, and even a French press takes less time than a percolator to make coffee. But the reality is, I'm not in the biggest hurry anymore. I don't really have to do anything other than wait for my coffee when my coffee's being made. So I'm looking forward to that, because it was a good cup of coffee. I used to get this morning. It was a good cup of coffee. We will go into that. I will show you the percolator and how it works and all that good fun stuff, in just a sense of like the kind of cup it makes. And yeah, so a lot of different things covered, a lot of different things taken care of. There's just a couple of items I got to find at this point, and I think we're going to get those figured out on Monday. At least whatever I can get in person, which I think is the water jugs at this point. I'm going to have to do the online for my double burger, but that's not a big deal. But anyhow, that is it. The van is working. I am happy. There is actually a huge amount of stress just came off of my shoulders. And I think I'll have a little bit of a photo journal for you, as well as I'm going to obviously try and take some real video tomorrow of everything I do. And we'll go from there. So everybody have a good night. Just want to let you know things are on the sunnier side. Peace.